Hello and welcome. We're going to speak to the topic of strategic business planning and how it will dramatically impact your success. We've had over 30 some years experience with the process I'm going to talk to you about. And so I want to give you a little history and background so that you have an appreciation for number one, some of the problems that it will overcome, and two, where we've applied it. So I'm going to talk to you about my initial exposure to this process, which was at IBM, where, to be quite frank with you, the system failed. And then second of all, how we improved the process when we used it at the Amdahl Corporation. And then thirdly, how we transitioned it to the insurance industry and why I believe it is the one business planning system that you once understood can be applied to every situation that you're being faced with where you have to make critical decisions as it relates to your future direction. During the late 60s, I was a salesperson with IBM, and because I was dealing with Fortune 500 accounts, I was asked to bring my sales team to a one-week planning session where we would have a corporate facilitator who would take us through this new process that had been developed. IBM had spent somewhere between $4 to $5 million on the development of this system. And so as we went through and spent this week together, I recognized that there were certain deficiencies in the overall system. First of all, that it took a week of us outside the territory. Second of all, we were doing and spending a lot of time on SWOT analysis, which based on my experience at that time and my experiences since has never produced anything of value. So we're spending a lot of time on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, etc. Really is not something that we will recommend to you. It was also focused highly on client knowledge, and it's interesting when you get in these rooms that most likely you know very little about your client if you're trying to take it from the members of the teams. And over time, I'll show you how we overcame that issue, and when we included the client in the planning process, how much further along we got. We've built plans that were extensive, comprehensive, designed to deliver a business result, but there were never enough resources to implement the plan. So while these were great plans that we wrote, they basically ended up on the shelf, and therefore, because they were never implemented, I finally got to the place where I was probably the most anti-planning person on the planet Earth in the 60s. And so the next time I was called to go through a similar process, I refused to attend, and I never attended another IBM session because I felt it was a total waste of time. However, by the early 1980s, I was now a sales executive at the Amdahl Corporation, responsible for building a team that was going to cover AT&T on a national basis. And that team, when we started, was delivering approximately $2 million a year in sales. And so I realized that I needed a vehicle that could create focus for the resources that I had available. So I asked a different or better question. I said, what's good about the process that I learned at IBM, but what's not perfect yet? And so over the next 3 years, I tested a lot of different approaches with the account executives on my teams, and eventually got to the place where we had a workable solution, where we could in one day do what it took IBM 5 days to do, and to get to the essence of developing business plans. So each of my account executives who was responsible for a specific business unit in AT&T, and in a business unit in AT&T, because it's very large, might be anywhere from $1 billion a year in revenue up to $8 billion a year in revenue. So an account executive on my team was responsible for developing a business plan that would demonstrate how we were going to penetrate that specific segment of the account that they were responsible for. What would be their vision of what could be achieved? What would be the 12-month objectives that we would have, and what are the action items that we were going to implement to achieve our objectives? And then we moved it further to develop a plan for our entire team, because once we understood how to make it work at the individual account executive level, we moved it up to the team level. So we now began building a team's business plan using the same process. And eventually, because of our success and knowledge and understanding how this system worked, we eventually realized that the way to understand better what the client's business was to do joint planning with our client. So an account executive would meet with the senior level executive at our account, would tell them that we would like them to come and speak to us for a couple of hours and talk to us about their business objectives, the issues that they're faced with, and then we would spend a day planning on how we would be able to help them accomplish their objectives. And then we would go back to them and review the plan that we came up with to, one, qualify what we heard, two, make sure we're on the right track, three, to really begin to get a commitment that if we did the following things, that we would get the client's business. And so I finally reached a place where I said to an account executive, if you're going to run a piece of my business and you're going to be an effective account executive, you must be able to sell this planning methodology to our client. And quite frankly, if you can't sell this, you can't sell anything. And so using this fundamental planning concept, we grew our business, which was $2 million at the outset on an annual basis, to an average of $160 million, and we went from a market share of less than 2% to a market share of 78% of AT&T's business over the next 6 to 7 years. In early 1990, I was a client of an agency in Philadelphia, the Creative Financial Group, CFG. They are part of the New England Channel and the MetLife Enterprise. And the owners of the agency asked me, because they had seen what I did in my business, asked me if I would come in and take a look at the ideas that they had and the direction that they wanted to go. And so what I realized in the early part of that discussion is these people were very sound leaders. They were good thinkers. They had many ideas, but the ideas that they had were basically on the back burner because they had these ideas for several years, but they had never implemented these ideas. And what I realized is they didn't really have a process to do so. And so I asked them a question. I said, what if I could show you exactly what you need to do for the next year? Would that be of value to you? And they asked a couple of questions. One, how long would this take? And my answer was, we probably can do it in the next 5 to 6 hours. And second of all, they said, do you know how to do this? And I said, I don't think I'd have ever asked you this question if I hadn't had a tremendous amount of experience that was successful. And I then explained to them the history that I had gone through. And what has transpired since is it became the basis for every single strategic initiative that this agency has implemented for the last 15 years. So Benchmark has been the strategic business planner using this process with this agency, and fundamentally has grown this agency from $1 million in first-year commission, which they were in 1990, to over $20 million of first-year commission in 2005, and makes them one of the top 3 or 4 agencies in the entire country. And so I would submit to you that they would say to you that this planning methodology has been the glue that has enabled them to create a highly focused organization that has produced outstanding business results year in and year out for the last 15 years. And they have a very aggressive plan to double this agency as they look forward. In 1997, I packaged everything that we did at the Creative Financial Group in Philadelphia under a blanket offering that we refer to as the Advanced Marketing Firm Program. And so we used the concept of the strategies that we implemented at CFG and developed a program where we were going to implement these strategies across the distribution channel. And we eventually ended up transitioning 65 agencies to the AMF umbrella. But during this process, we used the strategic business planning system as a way to implement the program. In other words, how could we take information that we're giving people in the classroom and ensure that it would get transitioned into action? You know, sort of like watching a football game on the sidelines, and it really looks great and you can criticize the quarterback, but now you've got to go in and run the plays. That's real different. And so we wanted to make sure that people understood what we were teaching them in the classroom and in fact ensure that they, quote, get it. And so what we did was every time we teach somebody a specific module, for example, how to create a sales team, then we would have them develop a customized implementation plan so that we would make sure that that the people understood exactly what would have to happen in order for this to be implemented. One of the things that we saw in the pilot, because we did 5 agencies originally in the pilot. The pilot consisted of the managing partner, the sales manager, and the marketing director from 5 different agencies. And one of the things I can tell you is that one of the more senior level managing partners in the audience decided he knew how to do planning better than I. And so he was telling his team to skip certain steps. He would dictate the direction they should take. He would tell them exactly what to do, and this would become their plan. And my executive sponsor at the time and I had a side conversation, and I said to him, at this point in time, you have to make a decision. You either have to think he's right or I'm right. And so his process was that he would have everybody follow the process that I was recommending, but if they chose to go on their own, he would allow them to do that, which this one agency did. 2 years later, they were back repeating the program because they never implemented the program the way it was designed to be implemented and never got the results. But when they came back and followed the process this time using our planning methodology, they did get to the level of expectation that they had. Eileen McDonald, who was the president in 2003, said to me that the work that had been done at New England Financial in our transitioning agencies to AMF firms created a solid planning organization. And in fact, the process that we used became the strategic business planning process that got expanded to include all initiatives for planning within the organization. So this is a very powerful process that has massive applicability and has been tested across literally hundreds of managers at this stage of the game. What's great about the application of this process is that it has been used across all industries. It is industry insensitive. It has created a discipline within the agency so that we get highly focused agency resources working on those things that are most important to the agency. And so we use it beginning at the senior management level to develop the agency's overall business plan. Second of all, we then teach the departments how to utilize the same process so that the department's plans support the overall strategies that the agency is putting in. We also use it for all of our team selling workshops. So every team uses the same planning process. And then once the managers understand it, they will work with individual producers who are not on teams to ensure that they are using the process as well. And when you are beginning to think about strategic alliances as an example, you need a process to be able to work with a strategic alliance partner. So again, this process can be applied to that. So it has many internal applications as well as external applications, and it's nice to know that you can use one process that, once understood, can be utilized by everybody within your organization, and so that you end up at a place where you have a much more consistent language and communications process in place for your entire agency. So what we've got is the glue, the common system that holds organizations together. It focuses all the resources. It creates a communications tool, because in this process we're going to define what your vision is first, and then what your 12-month objectives are going to be, and what your action items are going to be. And then we're going to communicate that to the entire agency. It makes you think strategically. And strategical is a word that I'm going to try to get into the Webster Dictionary, because most managers think tactically. In fact, it's been estimated that 95% plus of managers only think about tactics and rarely think about strategy. But in order to be effective, you've got to put the strategies in place first, or decide on the strategies you want to implement first, and then develop the tactics that are going to support the strategies. Tactics that don't support strategies are really a waste of effort. There's no leverage. So you have, a great idea, you do it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're on to the next great idea, because it does not support the higher level initiatives of the organization. This is a system that will measure the results that you have decided on. It provides accountability, because we're going to know who's got responsibility for each of the action items that we're going to develop. We're going to know what the time frame is, and we're going to have one person that we can go to, that we can ask, what's the status of this particular action item that we've developed, even though that person will be utilizing a variety of resources to get the job done. But it solves the single biggest problem that everybody has, which is the failure to implement good ideas and best practices that are going to move your agencies or your businesses to a much higher level. Several years ago, I'm part of a 280 business owner mastermind organization, and the owners in this business were highly frustrated by the fact that when we got together in these mastermind sessions, that they still, even though the ideas were great, they never got the ideas across the finish line. So I was asked to address this audience and to give them this system and to show them how to move great ideas to action in the shortest possible time frame. And many of the participants now use our system. So here's a partial list of people that we've dealt with. I already mentioned New England Financial, but Guardian, MetLife, Securian, AXA, Principal Group. We have agencies from each one of those organizations that have been through our training and have used this particular system. We've worked directly with over 550 teams that involve 2,300 producers, and so every team that comes to a workshop learns the system, and then takes the ideas that we cover in the workshop, the strategies, the systems, the processes, and develops a customized implementation plan using this system. And then Benchmark has also provided services to other organizations. So we've done strategic business planning for a large regional bank. We've helped teams that wanted to create strategic alliances, and agencies that wanted to create strategic alliances, by facilitating this methodology to build a plan with that organization and with their strategic alliance partner. We've worked with individual small business owners to help them develop their plan. And to close this off, I'll just tell you a real quick story. I did one for a sausage manufacturer in the Philadelphia area a couple of years back. And it was interesting because at the end of the session, I always ask the clients, well, what's your reaction to the planning methodology? And the president of the organization said, Bob, he said, it took us 30 years to build this business to 10 million in sales. He said, as you were going through the process, about midway through the process, I had no idea where you were taking us. But I have to be perfectly candid with you. At this stage of the game, I'm trying to figure out how I ever got to $10 million in sales without this process. Interestingly enough, that the plan that they built was to grow to $15 million in sales over the next 3 years as a part of their vision, and they actually got to $17 million in sales during that time frame. So I don't know anything about sausage manufacturing, but we know a lot about what are the right strategies and what's the planning methodology to utilize. And as we go further in this particular set of modules, you're going to understand soup to nuts exactly how to implement this particular process and this approach in your business.